So, there's a wrestling topic that's come up, and even though this channel's smaller, I'm interested and I want to discuss this. TNA's been a tire fire for a long time. And TNA was almost sold to Billy Corgan. The plug got pulled at the last minute. Billy Corgan sued him. Anthem comes in and takes over. They combined with Jeff Jarrett and his wrestling name come in, Global Force Wrestling. I consider Global Force Wrestling to have been a name more than a company. Global Force Wrestling sounds better than TNA, and it sounds better than Impact. So they go from Impact Wrestling to GFW. It's not working, apparently. Though they've signed I believe I read they signed an extension with Pop TV, which is not a channel. I mean, it's a channel, but it's not. Anyways, it's how the mighty have fallen. And they weren't that mighty in the first place, but at least TNA was the little engine that could. If TNA is up for sale again, Billy Corgan can get back into this. I have my suspicions that he won't. And I say that because I think he got burned last time around, and I don't think he wants to go through that again. He may be enough of a wrestling fan that he's willing to throw in and say, yeah, no, I'll do this again. But I don't think so. Dixie Carter's time in the limelight in wrestling is over. So I can't see that coming back. So the big question then becomes, does WWE buy it? I think the bigger thing is when Anthem loses it. Let's just say ROH wins it. Let's say the Sinclair group that owns ROH decides they're going to buy TNA as well. Impact, GFW. It doesn't matter what we call it. It's still going to be called TNA. If TNA is bought up by ROH, the Broken Hardys gimmick should be available. I really can't see ROH holding that over their heads. And here's why. ROH has always been a good spot to wrestlers who've recently lost their job in WWE or wrestlers who are trying to become noticed by WWE. A good example of a wrestler who's in ROH that I don't understand why they're still in ROH is Mandy Leon. If you haven't seen her wrestle on TV, she's fantastic and she's beautiful, and I do not understand why WWE has yet to give her a contract. But ROH is a really good ground to develop yourself. Or in the case of Jay Lethal, reinvent yourself. Jay Lethal is fantastic. And the Briscoes are fantastic. If it wasn't for the Briscoes' social media, they would have been WWE guys years ago. And I really think it's too bad because Jay and Mark Briscoe would be huge in WWE, especially down south. They do a tour through Atlanta, Dallas, places like that. I think the Briscoes would be over huge. But I digress. We're back to TNA. And the question of when can Matt Hardy be broken again? My opinion on the broken Matt Hardy thing is this. It's his gimmick. And I understand that the company helped him out with it, and they gave him a lot of airtime to develop it. But those were some of the highest rated episodes they'd had in a long time. And Matt Hardy made that happen. Matt Hardy took a gimmick that was dumb. I mean, the first time I saw broken Matt Hardy, I'm like, oh, wow, this is awful. And I laughed all the way through it. I was like, this is embarrassing. This is terrible. And then by about the third or fourth time I watched it, I realized I was still watching. That for the first time in years, I was watching something that TNA was putting on television. See, and for me, part of what makes a wrestler great is that they're able to take a crappy gimmick and make it work. I'm looking at Damien Mizdow as an example. Dolph Ziggler as an example. If you can take a crappy gimmick and make it work, good on you, Tyler Breeze. Fandango. Johnny Curtis is so talented to be able to pull off Fandango and not complain. And other guys would complain. But Matt Hardy, as broken Matt Hardy, by the third or fourth time I'd watched it, I realized I was watching genius. And genius is hard to spot in wrestling. With all these scripted promos and everything so down a narrow line. Even Roman Reigns and John Cena are arguing on Twitter, and it's like you can almost see how the writers are like, okay, now you guys are going to go on each other on Twitter, but keep it to your talking points. It's lame. It's really, really lame in this era where kayfabe is kind of out. And yet here I am talking about the broken Matt Hardy gimmick. If WWE can either secure that gimmick through the death of TNA as we know it, GFW, Impact, whatever you want to call it, if that company going under or being sold means that that gimmick is no longer under anybody else's intellectual property and Matt can take it back, that's huge. Absolutely huge. Matt Hardy is just, and Jeff as well, with that broken gimmick, they're fantastic. There are so many great things that they can do, and I think Matt was just starting to get really comfortable and really in the zone with that character, and then he left TNA. And under the belief that character could go with him. Reby Sky, his wife, has been very vocal about this, to the point where they kind of made a deal to shut her up, which she apparently abided by, and then she mentioned the agreement in a tweet, and I thought, wouldn't part of the agreement have been that she didn't mention the agreement? But whatever. I really hope that if TNA goes down, GFW, whatever you want to call it, it's still TNA. If it goes down, the wrestlers move on to something better, and that gimmick goes back to Matt. And I want to be clear on this too. Seeing any wrestler out of work sucks. Wrestling, it is hard enough to become a professional wrestler and make decent money at it. And ever since WCW folded, it has become so hard for indie guys to actually build up and have that future income. And when you look at the way WWE treats some of these indie guys, it's embarrassing and it's sad. Really, really sad. Because you'll watch a guy in an independent and you'll go, wow, this guy's got real talent. Listen to this promo. This is fantastic. Look at his moves. They're awesome. WWE signs him and you go, yes. And the first thing you read is they changed his name to something stupid. Oh, and his finisher? Yeah, they don't let people do those moves because they're too dangerous. So now it's been turned into a figure four or a Boston Crab or whatever it's been turned into. And it's something that has happened in WWE for a long time. And hopefully with the way they've been with Bobby Roode and some of the other guys who've come in lately like Samoa Joe, hopefully they've learned their lesson. And if TNA loses guys and they go over to WWE, hopefully they won't be saddled with really bad gimmicks. There are some really bad gimmicks. I mean, you look back in the 80s, you look on WrestleCrap's website, and a lot of the horrible gimmicks of the 80s and early 90s were thrown onto wrestlers who'd been successful elsewhere. Red Rooster. And they're gimmicks that turn what has been a solid veteran wrestler into a joke. Back to Matt Hardy. He took the broken gimmick, which could have made him an also ran in a joke, into pure gold. Pure gold. To the point where he was GFW, Impact, whatever you want to call it, at the time he left. So hopefully with this impending sale, we're about to see it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.